Yeah.
Right. But for me, it's like there's a point with every story you come to when you do these things is you recognize that you only have so much material to tell where you as a creator stop getting invested. And once that happens, you need to walk away.
Right.
But you need to get paid an F ton of money. All right. Something I remember so I look at like okay, Orson Scott Card or
Mm.
Terry Brooks. Right? Terry Brooks I feel maybe is a little different. I think he enjoys telling his stories. But I'm not always sure when I read all Orson Scott Card that he is like he's happy. I think after you get to Ender's fifth series featuring another character from the side story
Right.
that came a long time ago, that maybe just maybe the publisher is paying him a little too much, and he's stuck. And you're
Yeah,
like,
'cause he had some very creative series for a long time. I mean, back before Ender kind of became his cash cow. I mean, Ender was always the biggest one. Ender's Game, Ender's Shadow. I love Ender's Shadow. It's one of my favorite books still.
yes,
But and Ender's Game is really good too. I mean, they're similar stories, obviously taking place over the same time frame for the most part.
mm-hmm.
But the problem I have with Card, among a bunch
Yeah,
of
yeah,
problems, but I find that he lays a bunch of eggs on occasion. Like he used to be my favorite author when I was a teenager.
yeah.
And I would read it, and I read so many of his books that I'm like, well, this book's barely works, or this book's not fun. I don't enjoy this at all. And maybe some of those books would work better for me now that I'm an adult because they weren't, targeted at kids in the way Ender's Game was. But it's odd to me that I actually think he seems like a technical guy when it comes to how he crafts books. I have read a couple of his craft books on writing as well, and he seems like he's got like this thing like yeah, he's creative, but he has kind of a circumscribed view of what you create or what makes a good creation. And I don't know necessarily think it's always accurate.
Well,
It's odd.
okay, whoa, okay. No, I think. Okay, no, sorry, I hit a button. Oops. But technical difficulties. But I think with Car, I think this is something I actually I've come to realize too as I've told stories because I'm one of my favorite creators of all time is Dr. Seuss.
Mm.
I enjoy him more as an adult than I did as a kid. Right?
I love Dr. Seuss.
I thought he was silly as a kid, and as an adult, I enjoy him more. And he wrote for kids. I think to me, and this is maybe I am not sure. You probably would appreciate some things about Card a lot more now. Like you would
Yeah,
appreciate
probably.
some things, but I think in others you'd be like, right? I think to me his best two books are Ender's Game and Speaker for the Dead. Right, those are his best two books. I think everything he's done other stuff that's really interesting, but I think everything else he's done pales compared to those two because the first one is such a unique concept, especially for the time. It's just such a unique idea, and what ends up happening blows you away. So it's like, holy crap, right?
Yeah.
The Speaker of the Dead, although is not as good as the first book, it still stands out. It's unique because this is Ender after what he did that. Like there's something really worth
And it's a completely different story too. It's like
yeah.
one of them is like a pseudo YA pseudo because there wasn't really YA back when he wrote it, but it's a pseudo young adult kind of war story or military science fiction kind of thing, and then the other one is completely different. It's more of an inspirational sci-fi story, which is interesting to me. And there's a detective element and all this stuff, and like okay, this is really interesting. Mysteries going on. I like Speaker for the Dead quite a bit in hindsight. I didn't like it much when I read it though, because it was such a weird. Because I read it like right after reading Ender's Game. I was 14 or 15, but I think it's a really good book. I'm just saying, my enjoyment level was a little low because I was too young for it.
It's also such a different radical departure from the first book, right? But
he's not even really the same character because it's been like 1,000 years. He's a completely different guy than he was as a kid.
But that's
basically the same man, but he's like, okay, it's been so long, he's barely recognizable, which is cool.
Well, but that's what I thought made it so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is a man that has had a long time. This is the thing that made it so interesting to me. This is a man that had a long time to live with probably one of the most horrifying things ever done.
Yeah.
Right? You have to make peace with it. And in making peace with it, he became a very different person. And that's why it works, right? Because it makes sense. We all make mistakes that, like, I don't know about you, I've made a shit ton of mistakes. And some of them, I'm sure down the road will bite me in the ass. Some of them, probably, some of them maybe not. Who knows? Like, I hope I've learned from them, right? But that doesn't change the fact that some things I've done have had negative impact on other people, and I feel like I might have to deal with that down the road. It's just part of life. You're gonna make mistakes in this life, no matter how well intentioned you are, and so and as I'm older, I appreciate that story more simply because that's a very human element. But when you get to genocide and when you get to the rest of his story, it's you can tell like when you get to genocide, it's not really about him. It really is.
No, it's not about him. There's really only 2 books about Ender in that whole series.
Yeah, and it's the first 2. Everything else, like once he wrote those 2 books, you could kind of tell that there was nothing left for him to say or do or any of that stuff.
Right, and he's not even like the main character of Genocide or Speaker for the the last one. Children of the Mind.
Yeah, there's nothing. He's not in that story very much because there was nothing Card could say about him anymore. He said everything in the first 2 books.
Which is funny because now he's written a bunch of interim Ender's books with basically a different version of Ender from between the 2, between Ender's Game and Speaker for the Dead. And I mean, I don't know. I've never read any of those. Maybe they're good. I kind of bet his craft is still good on those, but I don't know if I would enjoy them. I'm not interested in reading them necessarily. It's been a long time. I'm not. It's one of those things. How can I go back when I've already read 30 Orson Scott Card books and I kind of know a lot of the things he's going to do?
Yeah, well, sometimes they can surprise you, but
it's true. It's possible.
But it's also, I think, ultimately comes down to this: have you said everything you're going to say about a character? Right? Yeah. That's important. Like, are you going to speak and say everything that matters to you? Because if you don't, right? If you truly don't, then you got something more you can tell. But once you do, like once you get to like for him, it was a 2-book DAC.
And that's not bad. That's a good number of books, honestly. More than some characters have in them.
Yeah. I mean, some characters don't even have one, and people try them, right?